a few eagle-eyed observers have correctly identified me as a Canadian. Now, if you know one thing about Canada, is that we are a very big, very cold country filled with giant deer, polar bears, a whole lot of wolves, trees with delicious sap, artery-clogging poutine, and we have provinces instead of states. Actually, I think that might be 8 things. You might also know that we have 2 official languages, English and French, from our 2 waves of colonists, and that these 2 groups get along so well. But of greater interest to me is in how each of these 2 languages handle, well, language. Languages change. This is not exactly news, but it is quite notable in how they officially recognize changes to their language. While no true governing authority exists for organic languages, that's what makes them organic after all, in English, the gold standard for defining English is the Oxford Dictionary, and it is notable in that the Oxford Dictionary is descriptive. When the language changes, or borrows a word from another language, the dictionary changes. Bromance, twerk, plonker. These are all things that are in the Oxford Dictionary. Are these words dignified? Are they quintessentially English? The Oxford Dictionary says, who cares? People are using it, in the book it goes. Language is broadly informal, and the English system is to be kind of formally informal. The French system is a tad weirder. French language authority is prescriptive, with state institutions passing down judgment on how French is to be used. The highest authority in French is the Académie Française, or the French Academy in a real language, where members bear the official titles of the immortals, not a joke, make official rulings on what certain things are to be called in the French language. How seriously people take these rulings is another thing, but not what we're talking about here. Separately, in Quebec, there is the Charter of the French language, a law, or rather a series of laws, outlining the usage of French in the province, such as signs being mandated to be in French, and if bilingual, the English part has to be smaller. While there's no direct connection between the Academy and the Charter, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a common attitude surrounding the French language that formed both of these institutions. So the big question is, why are these languages handled so differently? Not just in North America, but even back in Europe, English and French are practically sisters. Their countries of origin are right next to each other, the rivalry is legendary, and all of their royals are related to each other anyway. Or were. Well, there's no single solid reason, but I imagine it being 2. First, English is a contact language, while French is largely not. English is basically many languages in a trench coat, with the island having several waves of migration, the native Celtic languages being influenced by Roman Latin, and then Germanic Angles and Saxons, waves of settlings by Vikings, and then being ruled over by French-speaking Normans. English has always been a melting pot of different languages, and has taken a very approach to their own language. The English language is also infamous for its wildly inconsistent spelling, to the point where other languages don't have spelling bees, because it would be too easy. French, in comparison, has not had as much of a messy history. Keyword, as much. It is a language with clear roots that hasn't had to change as much and maintain a clearer form of self-linguistic identity. This extends into the age of colonialism, with the French and British colonial empires. While both of the French empires, because apparently there were 2 of them, were pretty big, they pale in comparison to the juggernaut of the British Empire, which covered a lot more area with big centers in a wider variety of locations, so modern English could be a lot more comfortable being exposed to loanwords, though this idea is granted a lot more iffy. On the other hand, most languages work more like English rather than French, so why not flip the script and ask not why English is so permissive, but rather why French, at least attempts to be, so restrictive. They lost to the English and now only have a very specific slice of the country they're culturally dominant in, and don't want their language and culture to be diluted. Fair enough, but what about the French Academy thing? Well, the European Enlightenment. A lot of new ideas flying around all the time, and some of them are bound to be pretty wacky. The idea of policing the French language goes all the way to the 1600s, with the Academy established to, and I quote, labor with all the care and diligence possible to give exact rules to our language to render it capable of treating the arts and sciences, which honestly sounds less insane and supervillainous than the French Academy staffed by immortals, just in case you forgot. During a time of scientific resurgence in Europe, they were not trying to police language for the sake of it, but rather formalize the messy language to better understand it and make it clearer for scientific communication, which I can respect. Why use a stuffy dead language like Latin that no one speaks anymore when you can do the same with a nice living language like the one you speak right now? That language of science may be dead, but our language of science will be immortal. Oh wait, that's why they're called that!